Whoa, look at you go. Lesson 3 already. You are powering through this. Good work. Now I want to talk about plugins and add-ons with Oxygen Builder. There's a lot of misinformation and confusion around this topic. Maybe you've bought Oxygen already, you've jumped into a Facebook group, and you get hit in the face by all these suggestions and recommendations of tools and plugins that you need to buy in order to use Oxygen. And then you start to question, well, what do I really need in order to use Oxygen to build custom websites? Spoiler alert, nothing. You can do it in Oxygen alone. But of course, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So I want to break this down into 4 categories and then go through them individually. So the first category is standard plugins. And that means the things that aren't really Oxygen related, but you use in WordPress anyway. And there's Oxygen design sets that are pre-made designs that you can use. Then you've got Oxygen components that give you some more functionality on the front end. And then last, we've got things that extend Oxygen. And by that I mean things in the back end that make the user interface a little bit better, or the way that it performs, more customizable. All right, so let's have a look at these in depth. So what do I mean by standard plugins? Well, I mean all of the non-Oxygen specific plugins that you use, and you use them on most WordPress websites. You probably have some that are in your stack already. I mean things like security plugins, caching plugins, image compression, SEO, those sorts of things. Like most page builders, Oxygen doesn't have those things built in, and there'll be a whole load of things that you are already using. Now those things are stuff that you're just going to use with Oxygen anyway. But there are two types that I want to actually bring to your attention here, and they're really important. One is forms. Now, some page builders will have forms built in, but Oxygen does not, and it doesn't look like they're going to do that in the future. And I agree with them. They're working on other things that are more important, and they don't really want to bloat Oxygen by introducing a form when there's already great alternatives around. And a lot of the time, you probably use other forms anyway, even if you have the ability to add something with your page builder, because they give you more flexibility. So the 2 that I generally use are Gravity Forms and Fluent Forms. Now in this project, I'm going to be using Fluent Forms, but you can use any form. As long as it's something that you can paste into Oxygen with a shortcode, then what we'll do is we'll look at sort of styling the fields using Oxygen, and it doesn't really matter what form plugin that you use. Now, I also want to talk about ACF and Metabox. Now, reason why these are so important is because they are actually really, really baked into Oxygen. That means you can create dynamic content, for things like repeaters or changing headers or images, for example, and even global stuff like the content in footers. You can use Metabox and ACF to achieve that and let the client be able to update stuff on their website without getting into the Oxygen templates. And that's really, really handy because, like I said, that's baked into Oxygen already. Now, in this course, I'm actually going to use the free version of ACF, and you can use that too. There will be a couple of times where I stop and show you some examples of things that I would do with the pro version. Now, I use Metabox and sometimes I use ACF, but ACF is definitely my go-to. Now, category 2 is design sets. I've mentioned this already, but if you're here to look at stuff like design sets, maybe you're in the wrong place, but I thought I would bring these up anyway. I don't actually use any of these, but a lot of the time when people say you need add-ons, these are the things that they mean. Now, Oxygen Ninja, Oxy Ninja, Oxymade, and Oxy Monster are 3 of the really big ones. And look, some of these have CSS classes and stuff that you can use, which is slightly different to a full UI. But on the whole, these are actually pre-designed things that allow you to, build websites without actually doing anything custom. Yes, you can change global styles and start messing with them, but it's not really like doing the design yourself. And I don't actually use them, so maybe that's not something that you want to look at either. Now, I want to talk about components. And by components, what I mean is little features that are on the front end of the website, certain things like accordions or special rollovers, for example. Now, these are things that aren't baked into Oxygen. Well, some of them are, But there's these component plugins that you can add that allow you to do other things. And maybe it's stuff like parallax, and they all add different things like Lottie animations. Oxy Extras is the one that I would use the most, but I don't use these on every website. It's a case by case situation. I look at the things that I want to do with Oxygen, and most of the time you can do them anyway. Now, some of these will be great for you if you really don't want to touch code, and I really do recommend Oxy Extras. They all have their own little features. So once you've done the course, you might want to go back and check out which one is right for you, but you don't need these to get started with Oxygen. Now, the last one is Oxygen extensions. And by this, I mean things that actually kind of extend the back end. Now, there are three that people talk about the most: Swiss Knife, Hydrogen Pack, and Oxy Toolbox. My favorite is definitely Swiss Knife and then Hydrogen Pack. They're all different prices, and they all have some crossover and do a lot of the same things. Some of the key things that stand out are Hydrogen Pack has a really, really good ability to copy and paste stuff between pages and templates, which is really, really handy. By default, Oxygen only lets you paste between classes, so it doesn't let you copy like full elements and full things that you've designed. So that's a really handy thing that Hydrogen Pack does. But Swiss Knife has a lot of things that I really like, as far as like allowing you to add custom fonts and upload them. It allows you to add custom scripts, global scripts and stuff like that. All of these actually also allow you to sort of customize the UI a little bit. So you can open up the sidebars, create custom widths for them, change the look and feel of them. Some of them have stuff like code hinting, which is really important. That's Swiss Knife that does that. And so again, these might not be something that you need straight away. They might not be something that you need at all. But Swiss Knife for me is definitely the one that's a go-to, because it adds more functions that other plugins that I would rely on, such as, a plugin that allows you to add custom fonts, and then a separate plugin to allow you to put scripts in as if you were editing the functions file. This is all in one plugin, so it's really, really handy for me. And the other one, like I said, is Hydrogen Pack. Now that brings me to this last point, and that's kind of my general philosophy on working with plugins, and that really is less is less. And that's why I'm sort of teaching this as a course where you shouldn't go in and rush and buy all these plugins, because you don't want a website that's got 5 or 6 plugins just by default before you actually start adding anything like forms or those sorts of things. The more plugins you have, that means the more updates you have to do. That means the more chance you have of conflicts. That means the more vulnerability you have. It's just more stress. So really, I believe there's a lot of benefit in actually learning to use Oxygen as it is, and then working out the few things that you do want to add as you go along. And that should give you a fair amount of information around what plugins and add-ons might be right for you once you've finished this course. Because I believe that's a real benefit in starting to learn Oxygen as it is. I mean, once you learn how to use it, then you can work out what things feel like they're missing for you. I don't really use many of these plugins. I really use Swiss Pro a lot, and I use Advanced Custom Fields a lot. Now, in this project, I'm going to keep Oxygen plain. I'm going to be using a few plugins, which is Advanced Custom Fields. I'm going to use Fluent Forms, but you can use any form you want. I'm going to use the free version of Advanced Custom Fields, but I will have a part where I'm going to show you a few differences between the Pro and the free version, and some of the things that you can do. So we're ready to move on. Click complete for this lesson, and I'll see you in the next one.